This passage, which borders upon quietism and enthusiastic devotion, differs no more from the mystical tenets of the Sufi creed than do European fruits and flowers from the lusciousness and fragrance of those of Asia, are than the cold skies and sun of the West differ from the gorgeous skies and blazing sun of Eastern lands. It is to express fervid feelings like these that by Sufism, poetry is brought into play, which, in its sweetest strains, teaches that all nature abounds with the divine love, causing even the humblest plant to seek the sublime object of its desire. In peace, love tunes the shepherd's reed. In war, he mounts the warrior's steed. In halls and gay attire is seen, and Hamlet dances on the green. Love rules the camp, the court, the grove, and men below and saints above, for love is heaven, and heaven is love. Sir William Jones, in his essay on mystical poetry of the Persians and Hindus, has given an excellent description of the Sufis and their doctrine, and I cannot do better here than extract therefrom such portions as may elucidate my present subject. The Sufis, he says, concur in believing that the souls of men differ infinitely in degree, but not all in kind from the divine spirit of which they are particles, and in which they will ultimately be reabsorbed, that the Spirit of God pervades the universe, always immediately present to his work, and consequently always in substance, that he alone is perfect benevolence, perfect truth, perfect beauty, and that the love of him alone is real and genuine love, while that of all other objects is absurd and illusory. That the beauties of the nature are faint resemblances, like images in a mirror, of the divine charms that from eternity without beginning to eternity without end, supreme benevolence is occupied in bestowing happiness, are the means of attaining it, that men can only attain it by performing their part of the primal covenant between them and the Creator, that nothing has a pure absolute existence but mind or spirit, that material substances, as the ignorant call them, are no more than gay pictures, gay as in joyous, presented continually to our minds by the spiritual artist, that we must be aware of attachment to such phantoms, and attach ourselves exclusively to God, who truly exists in us, as we exist solely in him, that we retain, even in this forlorn state of separation from our beloved, the idea of heavenly beauty and the remembrance of our primal vows, that sweet music, gentle breezes, fragrant flowers perpetually renew the primary idea, refresh our fading memory, and melt us with tender affections, that we must cherish these affections, and by abstracting our souls from vanity, that is, from all but God, approximate to his essence and our final union, with which will consist our supreme beatitude. From these principles flow 1,000 metaphors and other poetical figures, which abound in the sacred poems of the Persians and the Hindus, which seem to mean the same thing in substance and differ only in expression as their languages differ in idiom. It is the same in Afghan poetry, also, as the following pages will amply show. The modern Sufis, who profess a belief in Al-Quran, suppose with much sublimity of thought and diction that in a prior state of existence the soul had been united with God, and that at the creation, the created spirits and the supreme soul from which they emanated were summoned together with a celestial voice, demanded from each separately, Alastu b'Rabbikum, art thou not with thy God? That is, art thou not bound by solemn contract with him? Whereupon the spirits answered, Bala, yea. And hence it is that Alastu, or art thou not, the question of this parental compact, and Bala, or yea, occur continually in these mystical compositions of Islamic poets, whether Persians, Turks, or Afghans. Music, poetry, and the arts again to quote the words of a modern writer, are the unconscious aspirations of the soul as it hurries along in its restless impulses through the world, stung by the echoes of Elasto, yet ringing in their ears and with no visible object to claim the passionate adoration which it burns to pour forth. The Hindus, says Sir William Jones, describe the same covenant under the figurative notion, so finely expressed by Isaiah, of a nuptial contract, for considering God in the three characters of creator, regenerator, and preserver, and supposing the power of preservation and benevolence to have become incarnate in the power of Krishna, they represent him as married to Radha, a word signifying atonement, pacification, or satisfaction, but applied allegorically to the soul of man, rather to the whole assemblage of created souls, between whom and their beloved creator there is supposed that reciprocal love, which Borrow describes with a glow of expression perfectly oriental, and which our most orthodox theologians believe to have been mystically shadowed in the Song of Solomon, while they admit that in a literal sense it is the epithalamium on the marriage of the sapient king with the princess of Egypt. The very learned author of the Perlections on Sacred Poetry declared his opinion that the canticles were founded on historical truth, but involved an allegory of that sort, which he named mystical, and the beautiful Persian poem on the loves of Layla and Majnun by the inimitable Nizami, to say nothing of other poets on the same subjects, is indisputably built on true history, yet avowedly allegorical and mysterious, for the introduction to it is a continued rapture on divine love, and the name of Layla seems to be used in the Masnawi and the odes of Hafiz for the omnipresent spirit of God, if reference is here made to the first of the poems of the Afghan monarch, Ahmed Shah. We'll see this in page 294 of this work here. The force of the words of Sir William Jones will be more fully seen. According to the interpretation given to these mystical poems by Sufis themselves, for they have even composed a vocabulary of the words used by these mystics. By wine is meant devotion, sleep is meditation on the divine perfection, and perfume the hope of divine favor. The zephyrs are of outburst of rage. Kisses and embraces the transport of devotion and piety. Idolaters, infidels, and libertines are men of purest faith, and the idol they worship is the Creator themselves, and the tavern is a secluded oratory where they become intoxicated with the wine of love, and its keeper is an enlightened instructor, our spiritual guide. Beauty denotes the perfection of the deity. Curls and tresses are the infiniteness of his glory. The lips are the inscrutable mysteries of his essence. Down on the cheek, the world of spirits is around his throne, and the black mole upon the cheek of the beloved, the point of indivisible unity, and wantonness, mirth, and inebriation signify religious enthusiasm and abstraction from all earthly thoughts and contemplation of worldly affairs. The poets themselves give color to such interpretations as the foregoing in many passages in their poems. And it is impossible to imagine that such effusions as those of Hafiz, Sa'adi, and their imitators would otherwise be tolerated in a Muslim majority country, particularly at places like Cairo and Constantinople, where they are venerated as divine compositions. It must, however, be allowed that the mystical allegory, which, like metaphors and comparisons, should be general only, not minutely exact, is greatly diminished, if not wholly destroyed, by any attempt at particular and distinct resemblances, and that this style of composition is open to dangerous misinterpretation. The following ode by a Sufi of Bukhara is such an extraordinary specimen of the mysterious doctrine of the sect, although some of the poems of the Afghan poet Mirza are sufficiently so that I cannot refrain from inserting it in this place. Yesterday, half inebriated, I passed by the quarter where the wine sellers dwell to seek out the daughters of an infidel. I'm sure he means misbeliever, who is a vendor of wine. At the end of the street, a damsel with fairy's cheek advanced before me, who pagan-like wore her tresses disheveled over her shoulders like the sacerdotal thread. Again, pagan, just like infidel, would it be a? It's probably not a literal translation, because in Christianity uses the terms hate speech rather than. I said, "O thou, to the arc of whose eyebrows the moon is a shame." You know, like misassociator, misbeliever. Instead of infidel, misbeliever, and misassociator. I said, "O thou, to the arc of whose eyebrows the new moon is a shame. What quarter is this, and where is thy place of abode?" "Cast," she replied, "thy rosary on the ground, and lay the thread of paganism thy shoulder upon. Cast stones at the glass of piety, and from an overflowing goblet quaff the wine. After that, draw near me, that I may whisper one word in thine ear, for thou wilt accomplish thy journey, if thou hearken to my words." Abandoning my heart altogether, and in ecstasy wrapped, I followed her till I came to a place where alike reason and religion forsook me. At a distance, I beheld a company, all inebriated and beside themselves, who came all frenzied and boiling with ardor for the wine of love, without lutes or cymbals, or viols, yet all full of mirth and melody, without wine or goblet or flask, yet all drinking unceasingly.